questions, please leave those below or email me. I'm happy to help. Other than that, keep working hard, keep studying hard. Let's get into it. So we're starting with number 1. Registered behavior technicians should be prepared to collect data. Which of the following answer choices is not part of preparing for data collection? So this is straight from the task list. Registered behavior technicians, RBTs, need to prepare themselves for data collection each and every session. And there are specific things you need to do for data collection. So what we're asking here is, which of the following do we not do? Is it A, read data from last session, B, determine what programs you will run, C, gather materials for programs, or D, plan your programs after you arrive at the client session? So A, read data from last session. This is something you should do, okay? Especially if you are on a team of RBTs where there's more than one of you. You need to know what happened last session. You need to know what was mastered, what was worked on, any new behaviors, on and on, right? So reading data is required. B, determine what programs you will run. Yes, right? You need to set up your session. You have to be prepared, okay? Preparing for session is honestly half the battle. The more prepared you are for session, typically the smoother it's going to go. So B is something you should do. C, gather materials for programs. Yes, okay. If you need reinforcers, if you need something to take data with, you running preference assessments, if you need matching cards, whatever it might be, right? You need to gather those materials. So that leaves us with D, which is plan programs after you arrive at the client session. So this is incorrect. All these things you're doing, preparing for data collection, occurs before you get to session. So when you get to session, you can set up and go. Planning your programs before you arrive or after you arrive at session, okay, is incorrect. Data collection happens, or preparing for data collection happens before session. Data collection happens during session. So you need to be ready when you arrive so you can jump right in. You shouldn't spend 15, 20 minutes getting ready for session once you get to session. So the answer here is D. 2, there are advantages to permanent product recording. Which of the following answer choices best describes permanent product recording? Okay, so some of the keys on the RBT exam, right, are reading the question and understanding what it's asking, reading all your answer choices, and then knowing the terms and definitions. In my opinion, the most important thing on the RBT exam is knowing your terms and knowing your definitions. So when they ask you a question like this, where they're specifically asking about permanent product, you need to immediately know what permanent product is. You need to be fluent in terms and fluent in definitions. If you are, then these questions become very simple. And the simple questions you need to answer quickly so you have more time on the more difficult questions. So when you read this question, you should immediately think, what is permanent product? Okay. And then I'm looking for whatever describes that definition. So of course, permanent product is recording the production of the behavior, whatever the behavior produces, that is what we record, right? Behavior happens. We're not there to witness the behavior. We come in after the behavior happens and we record the product. Simple as that, right? So we're looking for what best describes that. A, Diane instructs her children to go clean their rooms before they leave for the day. 10 minutes later, Diane walks in the rooms to check to see if they are cleaning. So what is wrong with A? Well, A would be correct if Diane walked in after they were done and checked. But since Diane is actually observing the behavior, it's not technically permanent product, okay? Observing the behavior is not part of permanent product. Permanent product, one of the advantages is you don't have to observe the behavior. So A is not the best answer. B, John sets up cameras around the office so he can monitor work progress even when he was out of town or at his own home. Again, John is monitoring the behavior. He's actually observing the behavior, okay? Permanent product, we don't observe the behavior. We just record what the behavior produced or created, okay? John is recording and monitoring and watching behavior. Therefore, B is not our best answer. C, Mary was out sick on the day she was supposed to give a quiz. She asked the substitute to distribute the quiz anyway. The next day, Mary graded and scored the student's performance. Okay, this is pretty good, right? Mary didn't watch the students take the quiz. She didn't see the quiz being handed in. Okay. All Mary did was graded and scored the student's performance. Okay. And used that data, okay, to assess performance. So she used the permanent product of that quiz, okay, to assess performance. C is a very good answer. But always read all your answer choices. D, Glenn tells his children to go upstairs and brush their teeth. When they come downstairs, Glenn asks them if they're done brushing teeth. So Glenn did not observe the behavior, but did Glenn observe the product? No, he just asked them yes or no. Okay. Permanent product, we are actually observing and recording what the behavior produced. Okay. Glenn just asking the children if they brush their teeth is not enough to actually get data. Okay. So the only answer choice here is C. Mary took the quizzes that she did not see. Okay. She graded them and used that data to assess performance. 3. Your BCBA designs a new behavior plan to target your client's aggression. You implement it for 2 weeks and then start to think the plan isn't effective. What should you do? All right. So in this case, okay, this is more of an ethics question. All right. So if you can picture your task list, a lot of those last task list items are just ethics questions. Okay. So they're asking you, what would you do in this scenario? And when we're dealing with ethics questions, we want to use common sense and we want answer choices that are strong, but not too strong. Okay. So in this case, you're implementing a behavior plan that you don't think is very effective. What should you do in this situation? Should you A, change the plan immediately? You shouldn't implement an ineffective plan. Well, what is your role as an RBT? Your role as an RBT is to implement the plan. Okay. It's not your role to change the plan or design the plan. So A is incorrect. Even though you think the plan isn't effective, you shouldn't change the plan on your own. B, communicate with your BCBA immediately and share your thoughts with them. Yeah, B is very good, right? We want an open line of communication with our BCBA. If we don't understand something, if we think something is ineffective, we want to communicate ASAP with our BCBA, with our supervisor, okay? So we can straighten it out and we can start providing the best service possible. So B is very good, right? If you think the plan isn't effective, you should communicate that to your BCBA, and they're either going to agree with you or they're going to disagree. Either way, it's fine. At least you shared your thoughts, okay? That open line of communication between you and your supervisor is not only a task list item, but it's extremely important to providing good services. So B looks very good, but always read all your answer choices. So C, wait for further guidance from your BCBA before you do or say anything. C is okay, it's just too weak, okay? If you just sit around and wait, right, for your BCBA or your supervisor to tell you to do something, they may not even be aware that you don't like the plan, okay? So sitting around and waiting is never the right answer, right? So this one's too weak. A was too strong, C is too weak, okay? D, start to train the parents on the plan. Part of the problem is the plan isn't being implemented at home. That could be the case, but what's the problem with D is you as an RBT do not conduct parent training. You might assist in parent training, but you do not conduct it independently. So for 3, our best answer is B, communicate with your BCBA immediately and share your thoughts with them, okay? Open communication is the key. All right, we're looking at 4. Extinction, along with reinforcement and punishment, is a behavior change principle. Of the following answer choices, what does not accurately represent extinction? Okay, again, one of those where knowing the terms, knowing the definitions is extremely important. This question is a not question, okay? So be on the lookout for nots and excepts, okay? We're looking for the one that doesn't represent extinction. So 3 of these do, 1 of these don't. Which of the following does not represent extinction? A, extinction works to reduce behavior. Well, is that true or false? That's true, right? When we put behavior on extinction, we're removing reinforcement, okay, in order to reduce behavior. So A is correct. B, extinction works as a punishment procedure. Is extinction a punishment procedure? No. Extinction is its own separate thing. Extinction is part of a treatment plan, okay, that might involve reinforcement, that might involve punishment, but extinction on its own is not a punishment procedure, okay? Very common misconception where people think extinction is punishment because it reduces behavior or because sometimes we ignore behavior, but extinction is not a punishment procedure. Very important to remember. So we know B is the answer, right? You know B is the correct answer. Always read all your answer choices. You're looking for the best answer, okay? C, extinction can involve planned ignoring. Yeah, absolutely, right? Sometimes, depending on the function, extinction is going to be ignoring. So C is correct. And then D, extinction should be implemented 100% of opportunities. Absolutely. Extinction is only effective if it's implemented as consistently as possible. So 100% of the time might not be realistic, but you should try your best to achieve that 100% mark. Extinction should be implemented as close to 100% of opportunities as possible. Okay. So answer here is B, extinction works as a punishment procedure. That does not accurately represent extinction. All right, 5. Bill and his mother-in-law do not get along. Bill's wife notices that whenever her mother plans a visit, Bill immediately books a golfing outing with his friends. What would you hypothesize is the function of Bill's planning a golf trip behavior? All right, so function question. As an RBT, you need to know the 4 functions. It's on your task list. 4 functions are attention, tangible, escape, automatic. The function is the reason the behavior is occurring. So when you get a question on the exam, ask about functions, they're probably asking, why do you think the behavior is occurring? So when they ask, why would you hypothesize, what would you hypothesize is the function of a plan of Bill's behavior? All they're asking is, why do you think the behavior is happening? Why is Bill planning this golf trip behavior? Well, Bill plans the golf trip behavior whenever Bill's mother plans a visit. So the antecedent is Bill's mother-in-law plans a visit. Behavior is Bill immediately books a golf outing. So is Bill doing that for attention? Is he doing it to gain something, a tangible? Is he doing to escape, avoid a situation? Or is it automatic? Well, it's pretty clearly Bill's doing this to escape or avoid a situation. Okay. Bill wants to escape Bill's mother-in-law, her plans, right? So Bill's mother-in-law calls and says, hey, I'm planning a visit. Bill books a golf outing. Bill avoids that visit. So the best answer here is escape avoidance. All right, 6. Your best friend is an RBT. She works at the same company as you and works under the supervision of the same BCBA. You like your BCBA, but your friend doesn't agree with the feedback that the BCBA gives. When the BCBA gives her feedback, she ignores it and doesn't implement it or improve her services. What has your friend failed to do? Okay. So you like your BCBA gives great feedback, you implement it, you get better. Your friend doesn't, okay? Another ethics question. So ethics questions come straight from the task list, right? If you know your ethical task list, okay, ethics questions are a walk in the park, right? All this question is asking is, what does your friend fail to do from the ethics task list? And it should be very obvious if you know your terms, if you know your definitions, okay? Because your BCBA gives your friend feedback. She ignores it, doesn't implement it, okay? What has your friend failed to do? A, actively seek clinical direction from a supervisor in a timely manner. Well, no, because your friend is getting the feedback, okay? So they're getting clinical direction. What are they doing? They're just not implementing it. B, respond appropriately to feedback. Yes, right? Whenever you get feedback, It is your responsibility as an RBT, okay, to respond appropriately, implement it, try it out, and try to get better. If the feedback doesn't work, that's when you communicate, okay? All these things kind of play a part in each other. What your friend is doing is not responding appropriately, okay? Just because you don't agree with the feedback doesn't mean you ignore it, okay? If you don't agree with the feedback, you should communicate instead of just ignoring it, okay? So B, responding appropriately to feedback is something she isn't doing. What about communicate with stakeholders? Well, who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders could be parents, could be relatives, could be clients, whoever has a stake or an interest in the case, okay? This is a situation where your BCBA, between your BCBA and your friend, okay? It's not about the stakeholders here. And then maintain professional boundaries to avoid your relationships. Sure, your friend hasn't given any sign she's not professional, okay, other than ignoring the feedback, which is responding appropriately, but she hasn't crossed any lines with her family or with her clients, okay? So the best answer here is B, respond appropriately to feedback. 7, every 6 months, Miranda receives her favorite bottle of wine from her boss as a thank you gift for her hard work throughout the year. The last 2 times Miranda received the gift, her siblings drank the entire bottle when they visited for the weekend. The next time her siblings visited her, Miranda hid the bottle and served other wine. What type of intervention did Miranda implement? So Miranda is tired of her siblings coming over and drinking her favorite wine. So she says, okay, I'm going to do something about it. This time she hides the wine and does something else. What intervention did she implement? Was it an antecedent intervention, a consequence intervention, an avoidance intervention, or a differential reinforcement intervention? Well, you can immediately eliminate C because it's a function, right? But we're talking about interventions here, okay? So C is out. D, differential reinforcement. Did Miranda try to increase any behavior? Did she provide any consequence for their behavior? No, right? What did Miranda do? She was proactive. She was preventative, okay? She didn't even give them an opportunity, okay, to engage in the behavior she didn't want to see. She manipulated the antecedent of the bottle being available by hiding it. So she implemented an antecedent intervention. An antecedent intervention is preventative, it's proactive, okay? It's what you do before a behavior occurs, okay, to affect that behavior. A consequence behavior is what you do immediately after the behavior in response. Miranda hiding the bottle, okay, is a preventative strategy. It's an antecedent strategy, okay? It's just like if your client pulls hair and you put your hair up in a bun, or your client scratches so you wear long sleeves. It's preventative. It happens before the behavior, okay? Again, consequence happens right after the behavior. So Miranda implemented an antecedent intervention. 8, you spent the first month with your client managing behaviors and identifying reinforcers. This week, your BCBA wants you to identify what your client can and can't do in terms of skills. What procedure are you most likely going to implement? So put yourself in the shoes here. What are you going to be doing? You want to identify what your client can and can't do in terms of skills. And that's the answer. That's the dead giveaway. And that's why it's so important to know terms and definitions, because if you do, then you immediately know the answer to this question. So are you doing a task analysis? Are we breaking down any skills here into complex steps? No, not yet, right? We want to know what they can and can't do, okay? Task analysis would come after this. Are we probing? Yes, right? What is probing? Probing is identifying, okay? What can and can't you do? Asking them to do skills, okay? And just taking notes, right? We're not trying to manipulate anything here or reinforce. We just want to know what can you do, what can't you do? And that is probing, okay? What about generalization, and maintenance. Well, that comes after our skills, right? Once we teach our skills, then we program and check for generalization. Then we program and check for maintenance. But before we can do any of that, we have to probe to figure out what can you do, what can't you do. The answer here is B. A really easy question, 8, if you know your terms, if you know your definitions. 8's a very easy question. If you don't, 8 can become very difficult. Okay, and that's what you want to avoid. Those easy questions becoming too difficult. All right, 9. Mary's session notes included the following passage. When I arrived at session, the client was eating breakfast. Mom asked him 3 times to pick up his trash and received no response. The 4th time she asked, he screamed. The client was visibly frustrated at this point. I prompted the client to pick up his trash and provided reinforcement upon completion. What should not be included in her session notes? So they want to know what shouldn't have Mary put here, okay? Because overall, Mary did a pretty good job of describing the situation. But there is one thing in particular that doesn't belong. What is that? A, when I arrived at session, the client was eating breakfast. This is okay. It's objective, okay? It's complete, it's concise, it describes what's going on, okay? Mary didn't add anything extra. She just told me what happened. So A is pretty good. B, mom asked him 3 times to pick up his trash and received no response. Again, great, right? It's descriptive, it's complete, it's clear, it's objective, okay? Mary is just telling us what happened. B is good. C, the client was visibly frustrated at this point. Okay, so what's the problem here? Okay, is C objective? No, right? Because what looked like frustration to Mary might have looked like something else to the parent. Okay, emotions, right? Thoughts, ideas, they're not measurable, they're not observable. Okay, they don't belong in your session notes, right? Because what Mary just did was describe the situation and then try to explain it, okay, using frustration. But we don't know why this behavior happened, okay? And we can't measure frustration. Frustration is not objective, okay? Your session notes need to be objective. They need to be clear. They need to be concise. And then if you're describing behavior, okay, it needs to be measurable. C is not measurable. Frustration is not measurable, okay? Therefore, C is incorrect. What about D? I prompted the client to pick up his trash and provided a reinforcement upon completion. Again, perfect, right? She's just describing what she did, doesn't add any extra commentary, no opinions, no subjectiveness, only exactly what happened during session. Finally, 10, your BCBA designs a token economy to use during discrete trial training. Your BCBA wants to target sitting in a chair, responding in a timely manner, and working promptly. Your BCBA instructs you to provide tokens every 3 to 5 correct responses. What answer choice accurately describes the reinforcement schedule you will be using? Okay, so basic reinforcement schedules. We have FIs, VIs, FRs, VRs. What do we know about basic reinforcement schedules? We know F is fixed, V is variable, F describes a reinforcement schedule that doesn't change, V describes a reinforcement schedule that works on an average number of responses, right? We know that R is ratio and I is interval. R works on the number of responses and I works on time. So in this scenario, okay, we are only looking at your instructor providing you this reinforcement schedule. The other stuff doesn't matter. All that matters is this provide tokens every 3 to 5 correct responses. So what do you immediately know? Are you dealing with time or ratio responses? Well, you're clearly dealing with responses, okay? So interval is out, A and B are out. Now, are you dealing with an average number or a fixed number? Well, every 3 to 5 correct, okay? That's variable, that's on average, it is not fixed. So therefore, your reinforcement schedule will be VR4, okay? An average of 3 to 5 would be 4, okay? So every 4 responses on average, you provide a token. So basic reinforcement schedule is very simple, okay? Understand what the letters mean, break it down. You shouldn't miss these questions. Very, very simple. All right, so that's 1 through 10. Next week, we will continue with 11. Okay. Remember, if you need any of our study material, please check out our website or one of these links, which I'll put in the comments and descriptions below. Please like and subscribe. If you are enjoying my videos, any questions, let me know. Other than that, keep studying hard, and I will see you soon.